if further states, if misused as it was at the Branch Davidian complex, it will become highly flammable, is capable of creating hydrogen cyanide gas. Now this is a chemical company, Aldridge, reporting this, that can immobilize, even cause death. Aldridge Chemical Company quit exporting CS to Israel in 1988 because they were misusing the chemical by shooting it into buildings that the Palestinians occupied. Many of those people subjected to CS became ill, and others died from the exposures and in closed quarters. And here we say, referred to Chemical Report CS Agent number 6, Amnesty International's report. They've made this report, and we have that included in this. And furthermore, the FBI SWAT team manual, which we have combined in this report, discloses the same instructions and directions for the use of CS gas. And again, we ask that they refer to the chemical report on the CS agent SWAT team manuals. And we go on and on and on with things that happened. It says here, now here's 25. This is important. At the onset, at 12:05, the smoke screen coming from, at 12:05 p.m., smoke screen coming from the complex. Within minutes, fire spotted in 4 different locations. Fire trucks are not called until approximately 12:30, when they knew, now we had a 25-mile-an-hour wind, they knew there was fire in 4 locations of this building. I have just told you, I'm going to tell you now, I have just told you of the existence of 4 pyrotechnic devices that were found. Now they're stating they had only 2. Fire trucks are held back under the pretense of exploding ammunition. Now this is an intentional, overt act. And the reason we say this in this report, and we're going to get to it here in just a second, and I hope this should have been a 2-hour program to have gave you all this information. We've never released this information to the public before. Now we've always let them have the video, which we've have sold, we've showed it, we've done all kinds of things. This has ever had the supporting evidence that we had, other than Congress, to back this up. At the time, we were fearful of releasing the information, that it would give defense to the people that were responsible for this incident at Waco. So we sat on it till we gave it to Congress. And consequently, Congress turned it into a battle over gun control and all kinds of things at that time. Hopefully they'll be better this time. But at any rate, I'm going to go on, and I'm going to tell you, because we don't have time to go through all of these overt acts and various things and the various people. And some of the very people that we used to investigate this and hired them to go to Waco were officials from right here in K County as well as Oklahoma City. We didn't rely on people say, all the people from different parts of the United States, although we did use many. And in doing that video, we had to file, I think, 2 lawsuits. One to gain access to the complex, which certainly I'm glad we did that at the time. I wasn't too happy about it at that time because of the expense of that. We were using lawyers in 2 states to do that. And but anyway, that's some of the material and why we formed the opinion that we formed and why I am vocal about it today. I was in 1993, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and I will be until action is taken in this case. And I think there's other people out there today that are just like me. I think there's people out there that do want to see justice, whatever justice is, however it comes down, that there is not one standard of justice for you and I and another standard for an FBI agent or an ATF agent. And I've said this publicly before, ATF agents, FBI agents, in the Congress of the United States. And I will continue to do that. Okay, now then I'm going to go, I could tell you a whole bunch of things because there's so much in these reports, but mainly I want to go to the report that Dr. Uhlig prepared for us. Then I'm going to go into the middle of this part here, and if you would, well, let's just roll a little of that video while I'm reading this. And some of these words are pretty big words, folks, and they're a little hard for me to say. They're chemical words. The chemical in question, this is coming from his report, Dr. George Eulig's report. The chemical in question bears the formal name of orthococcyl benzylindidine, something of that malonitrile. Sometimes it is also referred to as another large chemical name, which I won't attempt to pronounce. The more common reference to this agent on the part of law enforcement agencies is simply CS, which stands for the initials of the scientists B.B. Corson and R.W. Stroughton, who first prepared the compound in 1928. I haven't yet figured out, he tells here, how to draw the chemical using a computer graphics program, so it is hand-drawn. It is a hand-drawn formula on attachment 1, structure 1. The C equals N is what we refer to as a nitrile group. Nitrile groups easily combine with water in the lungs, for instance, to give an organic acid and ammonia. We call the hydroxylase and the product of hydroxylase are extremely irritating to the lungs and eyes. That is what makes it an effective riot control agent. The Merck Index, 11th edition, a book of organic chemicals and their properties, lists these chemicals as NR2127. It also lists the material as being soluble in acetone, dioxane, a salicylic other, methylene chloride, ethyl acetate, and benzene. The CS is listed as only slightly soluble in water. Ethanol is not mentioned as a solvent. Usually, ethanol has a highly greater tendency to dissolve organic materials than water, so you could expect a fair solubility of CS in ethanol. But not as much would go into the solution with other solvents. But understand, if you were to dump 5 to 10 pounds of the material in a 55-gallon drum of ethanol, my feeling is that it would totally dissolve in the ethanol. The large quantity of the solvent is compared to a small quantity of CS. The solute would almost ensure total solubility of the CS in ethanol. However, if you wanted to mix equal weights of CS and ethanol, then I doubt the CS would be totally soluble in the ethanol. And you have to listen closely to these words that he's saying, especially as we get into this. The usual method of dispensing the agent is in the outdoors, not confined spaces and explosive charges causing the agents to be dispensed in a fine aerosol. I am told there are concerns with dispensing the agent in confined spaces, as the explosive charge could cause a finely dispersed aerosol to ignite. Should this occur, the product of combustion would be what we call a cyanide radical, carbon dioxide and water. If sufficient quantities of air are not present, then you have carbon monoxide present instead of carbon dioxide. Either kills. This cyanide radical could then combine with the water formed by the combustion of the CS to give hydrogen cyanide gas. If dilutants were used, such as acetone or ethanol, then water would be formed from the combustion of the acetone or ethanol. Only ethyl alcohol would aid in the formation of hydrogen cyanide gas. In fact, any of these solvents listed above, when ignited, would form carbon dioxide and water. The purpose of using a dilutant would be for better dispersal of the agent into the nooks and crannies, where a powder would have difficulty reaching. The other reason for using a dilutant would be to have the CS gas penetrate the wood of a structure, or else be evenly dispersed on the walls of a painted structure as the dilutant evaporated. It would leave behind a thin coating of CS to make the structure uninhabitable for a long time. In my opinion, he states, the CS was diluted with either acetone or ethanol, as the autopsies indicated. Both solvents were present in the lungs of the individuals killed at the Branch Davidian complex outside of Waco, Texas. Ethylacate could have been used as well. When inhaled, the ethylacate would hydrolyze into ethanol and acetic acid, which is vinegar, in the lungs. Ethylacate is a solvent used in model airplane glue, which some people sniff to give them a chemical high. Other than the fact that you risk a chemical pneumonia, the body does break the material down in the lungs to ethanol and acetic acid if you don't kill yourself first. If this were the case, the ethanol would come from the hydrolysis. Holes punched into the structure by federal agents to get uniform dispersal of the agent, now diluted with either acetone or ethanol to make the structure uninhabitable. The liquid aerosol obviously was of correct particle size, came into contact with a flame, and the flame front traveled from particle to particle rapidly to create the fireball described by the survivors. We used a similar concept in designing fuel-air explosive devices in the Air Force.